Well, as you can see up here behind me on the screen, that's the topic that our guest is going to speak to. But I've got to tell you, of all the good things that the city government was associated in last calendar year, 2022, this one is the top of my list, and maybe Colette and Daryl feel the same way. This is the gift that keeps on giving. But our guest speaker is Alan Stanton. He is the Administrative Project Manager with the College of Dentistry at the UT Health Science Center and manages the $53 million Healthy Smiles Initiative. Previously, Alan served as the Executive Director of the Turner Center for Rural Vitality at UT Southern. Alan is passionate about rural communities and is the author of Reclaiming Rural, published in 2021. His work has been featured in a variety of publications, including The Daily Yonder and Faith and Leadership at Duke University. Somebody hold Landone down. Alan holds degrees from Wake Forest University and Duke University and lives in rural Tennessee with his wife and 2 daughters. Please join me in welcoming Alan.
Thank you, sir. Hello. It's good to be here. I'm pretty informal about how I give presentations, and I'm particularly informal about this presentation and this topic because I'm so new to this whole project. I started with the College of Dentistry in December of 2022, and then we immediately went on Christmas break. And then we moved to Memphis about 2 weeks ago. So everything is spinning for me. So sometimes Paula is here, and sometimes I call Paula, and last night actually I said, I don't understand this part. So some of you know more than I do. But it's really good to be here. One of the things that attracted me to this project was because I deeply care about rural communities and rural regions, in Appalachia in particular. When I heard what was happening here in Kingsport, I was immediately drawn to this work. One of the other reasons I was really drawn to this work is because we have a lot of family in Western North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina originally, and we often are in the mountains, so any opportunity to be closer to the mountains, I am always excited for, and this job meant that I could come here as often as I wanted. So that's, if you see my dean, don't tell him, but that's the real reason I accepted this job. So what I wanted to talk about today was I wanted to give a broad overview of the Healthy Smiles Initiative, this $53 million initiative that's funded through the state. The $53 million is the University of Tennessee's part, and then we have other initiatives that are part of that as well that the state and Meharry Medical School are managing. And then I wanted to talk about how the Kingsport Dental Clinic fit into that, and then open it up for questions or comments or any conversation that we wanted to have as a group. So let's start with that. There's a few challenges that this working group identified over the last several years. So one of those was that Tennessee is critically underserved for dental care. I don't think that's surprising to anybody. I don't think that's shocking. We actually, a couple years ago, we were 43rd. We dropped to 46 in access to dental care. That's the adults. We're a little bit better in pediatric access. 86 counties are below the recommended 61 dentists per 100,000 people. That is about 90% of the counties. 26 counties have less than 20 dentists per 100,000 people. And then the number of licensed dentists actually continues to drop. So last year we had 4,211. This year we have 4,000 licensed dentists. This does not mean that all 4,000 dentists are people that you could just go to the dentist for. A lot of these are, specializations or dental surgeons, or they work in a university setting. So this number is actually lower than 4,000, and it continues to drop. Over the next 10 years, we're expecting to have a shortage of about 800 plus dentists in Tennessee. So there's a real need for improved access to dental care. One of the challenges is that as people graduate from school, they end up staying in more metropolitan areas. There's a few reasons for this. Has anybody ever heard the term brain drain? Yeah, that's a familiar term in a lot of rural communities. So what brain drain talks about is recent postgrads from college leaving rural areas and staying in urban areas or suburban areas. And there's a few reasons that this happens. So one of those is there's just not educational access in a lot of rural places. So if you want to be a lawyer or a surgeon or a dentist, most likely you're going to go to a school in a more urban area, right? I lived in Pulaski, Tennessee before I moved to Memphis, We had one college for all 14 counties around us. We had 2 master's programs, but if you wanted to be a lawyer, you needed to go either to UT Knoxville, which is 4 hours away, or up to Nashville, or down to somewhere in Alabama. You could not go to law school and live in Pulaski, right? If you wanted to be a med school, kind of the same thing. You needed to go to Memphis or Knoxville, or you needed to travel to a different state. To be a dentist in Tennessee, we have 2 dental colleges, Meharry Dental in Nashville, and the College of Dentistry in Memphis. And then the closest dental school, this is a fun guessing game I like to do. Anybody know the closest dental school to this location?
LMU, Knoxville.
UNC Chapel Hill.
LMU, Knoxville. It's recent.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, LMU. That's right. Yeah, Lincoln Memorial. Before Lincoln Memorial, you had to travel to Chapel Hill. That was the closest dental school, and Chapel Hill is a very different world than Kingsport, Tennessee, as you can imagine. Not Chapel Hill, Texas, Paula. So Healthy Smiles, what we wanted to focus on was how do we get more dentists into rural areas in our state. So we started with a couple of things. So the state oversees some of this. So we have an educational loan repayment program that the state administers. Most dentists graduate with about $300,000 in debt, which is, I can't wrap my mind around being in debt right out of school like that. So this program, if you serve in an underserved area, they'll repay you $100,000 per year. So we're trying to recruit dentists who want to go live in a rural area and give them the incentive to go back and live in these rural areas. So part of this will be people who said, I want to go back to my hometown, I want to go back to rural Tennessee and open up a private practice, and I want to have the money to open up that private practice. Some of this will be people who say, I just want to pay my student bills and then I'll go to a place and I'll fall in love with it, right? So an aside, I went to divinity school at Duke University. I am probably the only person who entered into public policy through theology. Go figure. Okay, there you go. If you have questions, you can talk to me about that later. But I went through a program that was very similar to this, where they agreed to pay for my theology degree, my 3-year seminary degree, if I would agree to serve a rural community for 5 years. I had no interest in serving rural places, and then when I was in school, I fell in love with it, right? And then in that period of 5 years, I thought, actually, I want to work with rural communities all the time, and it became my career. And one of the things that we hope for is that these students, if they go serve in a rural area just to repay their loans, they'll fall in love with the communities, because rural communities, places like Kingsport, are really fantastic to live in. We just moved out of a rural town and I was really sad to leave it. It was a great quality of life for me and my family. One of the other things is that we're going to expand the class size from 100 students to 130 students. So right now we have 100 students within the dental school. A certain number of those we're required by law to give to students from Arkansas. But we're expanding that to 130 by 2027. This year we accepted 110 students into the program. Next year we're planning to accept 120 students. And then after that we have to have a place to put them, which is where the Kingsport Clinic will come into play. But by 2027 we'll have 130 students. So a pretty significant increase in the number of graduates. We're also doubling the class size almost for our dental hygiene program. So we'll go from 26 dental hygiene students to 48 per class. So we'll double that. And I don't remember off the top of my head how many I think we went up to 35 this year for dental hygiene. A substantial part of the program requires us to open up rotational clinics throughout the state. So we have rotational clinics right now in Union City, in Nashville. We're starting one in Crossville and Knoxville, and then we'll start one here in Kingsport that will be at this new facility. These are clinics where our 3rd and 4th year students will go. They'll train for 2 weeks. They'll actually take care of patients. They'll get some of their hours, and then they'll go back to Memphis to continue their program. We send them out. We pay for their lodging. They're here for 2 weeks, and then we ship out put another couple of students in. So at any given time, we'll have 2 to 4 students that are on these rotational clinics. And then the most exciting part for me is we're starting these new advanced education and general dentistry residencies. So a residency program is someone who they might have already been in private practice, they might be right out of dental school, but they are a fully licensed dentist They're able to practice within the community. They just want a little bit of advanced training. And we'll open up a general dentistry advanced residency program right here in Kingsport. So these students will come, they'll be professional dentists, and they're just trying to get a little bit more experience before they go off into starting their own private practice or wherever they go. And we're anticipating 4 to 6 students being here in Kingsport. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get into the phases. And then there's a couple of other programs. So the Smile on 65 program that the state administers, and the other grant program. I'm not even going to try to say the dental. I'm not a dentist, so sometimes I butcher the words. So it's a pretty comprehensive program. And the question that we often get is, well, where does Kingsport fit into all of this, right? Because this is a statewide initiative, so what is the role of the Kingsport Clinic? Does anybody recognize this building over on Sevier? So what we're looking at for phase 1, we have the upstairs and 2 units over here, and we're looking at redoing unit 220. It's about 7,000 square feet, and we'll eventually take over the whole upstairs as our plan. But and this is the mock-up for it. This is not the final mock-up, or the most recent one, but I wanted to show you kind of what we're looking at. So we've broken this out into 3 phases, and we're starting the process for phase 1 right now. Phase 1 will host these 2-week residencies, 2-week rotational clinics that I talked about. We'll have 3rd-year and 4th-year students that will come up, and they'll do hands-on everything training, right? So they'll put on your crowns, they'll do your fillings, they'll do tooth extractions, everything they need to do. We'll also have dental hygiene students. We're talking to East Tennessee State University about hosting 2 chairs specifically for ETSU students. So we'll have a good partnership with them. And then we'll start 4 residents, maybe moving up to 6, in this AEGD, Advanced Education and General Dentistry program. So they'll be here for 1 year. And then this, of course, can serve as a hub for a lot of other remote clinics throughout the region. So it won't just be serving Kingsport, it will be serving all of this area. Because since we have the residents, we can actually send them out to do clinics in schools, at churches, at other dental practices. We can host free clinic days. We just did a major event in Memphis where we had a ton of, we call it Healthy Smiles. No, not Healthy Smiles. Give Kids a Smile. And we have kids from all the middle schools in Memphis actually come to the dental school for a free clinic day, right? And so we'll be able to do some similar stuff to that because we have residents and faculty here to supervise that. So it'll be a boon not just for the people of Kingsport, but for everyone within the region. Right now, we are finalizing the floor plan for this and finishing raising money for this initial capital project. But the latest projections on the timeline have us launching somewhere, having a new crop of students in by the start of the academic year in 2024. So July of 2024 would be our hopeful start date for having residents and rotations in the area. And so we'll start the search for faculty, and we get invitations from people who say, I want to be a faculty member when you finally open up. So we're really excited that there's been a huge interest. So phase 2 would be a 3rd and 4th year program in the area. What we would do is expand to the other side of the building, and we've started fundraising for this as well. We started trying to line up different funding sources. This would actually host D3s and D4 students. They would do their first 2 years in Memphis, and then they could come back out to Kingsport and finish their dental education and graduate from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center from this campus. And we would have about 24 to 28 students here at any given time, per class, total. And that would include both the Doctor of Dentistry program and the dental hygiene students. We would also continue to have those 4 to 6 AEGD residents. What's cool about this is that we can actually open them up to more specializations from Memphis. So the students can come here to do general dentistry, but then they can travel back to Memphis, or we can get faculty from Memphis to come out here. So if we have a student that wants to focus on pediatric dentistry, for instance, we can have the faculty member come over, teach a unit on pediatric dentistry, do additional clinics on that. And then also open up the clinical rotations again and those pop-up clinics throughout the hub, throughout the whole region. So it becomes even a better hub, because one of the things that all of our D3 and D4 students have to do is mandatory clinical hours. We don't have technical requirements in the College of Dentistry. You have competencies. And in order to get a competency, you get a certain number of points based on the number of procedures you've done. So a root canal, is 150 points, and you have to get X number of those. before you can graduate and take your boards. So these D3 and D4 students would be seeing patients all the time at a reduced cost. So I think in Memphis it's generally about a third of what you would pay for a private practice. Now, the other side of that is you have a student working on you, so it takes a little bit longer because we have to check every step of the way. But it's a really great benefit to the whole community. I had a crown that was shaved off. It was too high, and I went up to one of the students, and they did it in about half an hour the other day. And it was much cheaper than if I had to go find a dentist in the community. And then phase 3 would be a 4-year dental program. And I think this is what is most exciting to me, is to be that we're at the ground floor of what could be an entire program here in the area. And this would be your complete 4-year program with students from all over the state. It'd be a satellite campus of the UT Health Science Center. We'd have 80 to 100 dentists on site, which means that this becomes a location for these dentists to go to school and then hopefully stay once they graduate. They would enter into that loan repayment program, and they would want to be here, and they would be serving all of East Tennessee. So the closest dental program would not be, Knoxville or Chapel Hill, it would be Kingsport. This is a little bit of a further way out. Some people have asked me, is this starting like next year? No, this is a long dream, and it requires a significant investment. I think at least $60 million on the build out for this whole program. And I think I saw one estimate that ranged like up to $80 million. So it's a significant investment, and there are plenty of obstacles that we have to that we'll have to overcome to get there. So phase 1, the biggest thing is cost. Phase 1 alone is looking in $1 to $1.3 million for startup cost, and then another $2 to $3 million in build out, and $800,000 in recurring cost. So we are working really, really hard to find a wide network of partners, including Kingsport and Eastman Chemical, and we have really gotten a great community investment into this program, and I'm so excited because it's not always that you enter into a project like this or this many people and this many partners are excited. And I'll show you just a few of the people who have been involved in this planning. We'll also have to add faculty and staff to meet all the needs. So to increase the class size in Memphis, we're adding about 10 faculty members this year just for Memphis. So we'll have to add faculty that will be here in Kingsport. So we'll have a faculty director on site when we start the residency program. We'll have faculty when we get to phase 2. And we'll have continued faculty throughout the process. And these are pediatric dentists and, endodontics and all the different specialties. One of the challenges will also be accreditation. So every step of the way in higher education is known for its nimbleness and speed and flexibility. I shouldn't make jokes when somebody from the THEC is on. Yeah, sorry. You didn't hear me say that. Yeah. So every step of the way we have to go back for accreditation, and as you can imagine, they made this super convenient by only meeting to discuss accreditation once a year in February. So if we miss that deadline, then we are delayed a whole other year for all of these steps. So fortunately, we have been going about this proactively, so we have the accreditation to start the various components that we need to get in place. But every time we add another step, that accreditation process becomes a little bit more intensive and a little bit more intensive. So that'll be a huge obstacle for us. And then finally is patient volume. So one of the challenges in running a dental program is that you have to recruit your own patients. So if you are doing a medical residency, your doctors go and they practice in a hospital where patients just sort of come to you, right? When we do residencies and we have D3 and D4 clinics, we have to have all the different competencies covered. So we can't just have, 50 cavity fillings. We have to have the whole range. So we have to have the patient volume to support whatever new program we put into place here. And one of the things that we'll be studying over this first year with the AEGD program is how many patients can we realistically see in a year to support these programs and this number of students. And truth be told, the future phases will be dependent upon how many patients we actually see. And then part of that too is revenue. We have to make sure that we can minimize the amount of expenses that we have for the clinic. So we don't charge a ton of money, but we do have to keep the lights on in the clinic and the recurring cost down. So patient volume will be one of the determining factors. So as people start as you start hearing about it, encourage people to come to our clinic. It's going to be really important. One of the great things, as I mentioned, is we have a huge group of stakeholders. And my first day, well before my first day at work, I accepted the job, and the dean said to me, hey, we have this meeting tomorrow. I want you to be on the Teams meeting. And I got on the Teams meeting, and it was, Paula, you were there. It was 30 people in that meeting, representing tons of different organizations throughout East Tennessee and the state of Tennessee. And it's so fun to work in a group like this where not only are the people actually working together and collaborating, everyone is really trying to find the best solution to all of the challenges. And everyone is really supportive of this initiative. I've worked in a lot of community partnerships in higher education, and that is not always the case. So, sometimes when you have multiple agencies, some of the agencies are saying, like, I'll do that, but if in order for me to do that, you have to put this brand and this brand and this brand, right? That has not really been, like, everyone sees the vision for what this clinic could be, and everyone sees the potential and how it would impact Kingsport. So it's been a great blessing for me to work in this group. And there are a lot of benefits to our city. First and foremost is improved access to dental care. At the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that we really needed more dentists in the area. We also need more dentists coming from East Tennessee. People want to work in the communities they grew up in. People want to stay in these places, and we want to give people who want to be here a place where they can go to school. We also want dentists to choose to reside in the Tri-Cities area. One of the things about brain gain, the inverse of brain drain, is we see students as they're a little bit older starting to come back to rural communities, and they come back for a variety of reasons. One of those is they've now realized that they like the slower pace of life, they feel like they can make a difference, and they have more ability to have leadership in their communities. So they go away to school, they get their post-grad degree, they come back to the community, they want to be leaders in that community. And as people start raising kids, they often find their way back into the rural spaces. One of the great things about this is that by the time they come back, and this a little bit later, they have more disposable income, and so they actually contribute but more to the economy. And so our hope is that if we are training dentists here in Kingsport at this site, then these students will have no debt, and they'll immediately be able to make a contribution not just to the healthcare of the community, but to the whole economy. They'll be a fundamental part of the economy of this area and the growth of this area. And then improved access to dental care is correlated to a lot of other things. So I don't know if you've ever had a toothache and you've tried to go to work with a toothache. You can take ibuprofen and it'll go away for a few hours, and then you take more ibuprofen and it'll go away for a few hours. But toothaches don't get better, right? Like they're not, my daughter will skin her knee and then 20 minutes later she's fine. That's not how a toothache works. And so what we know is that when people have untreated dental needs, there's more poverty. They can't go to work. They can't focus on work. They miss more work. And if they're students, they can't perform as well in school because you can't really learn to read if all you are thinking about is the pain in your mouth that radiates and pulses. So we know that better access to healthcare and better access to dental care in particular is good for the economy and the well-being of the community, but it's also good for our literacy scores in our school system, and it's going to help our school system to perform better. So that's just a little bit about the area. I want to open it up for questions and comments, but I also want to make sure that you have my contact information. So this is my email address. It's really simple to remember, ats@uthsc.edu. And then this is my phone number. You can call or text me on that, and I will answer and respond back. So if you have any questions that I didn't get to today, feel free to reach out. I love to hear what people are thinking about in your questions. So with that, I'll open it up if anybody has any